What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield back holding it down for us in the DraftKings studio in Boston as we are still on baby watch. What's up, Jesse?
8 days from my due date, really feeling it. Could happen at any moment. We're on water breaking watch. We're on peeing my pants watch. It's really a magical time.
Wow.
Fluid
wow.
watch.
Just sounds like just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Were you told the second one? What were you leading into told? Will the second one be early or late or what were you led to believe?
I was led to believe by everyone I know and my doctor that this baby was going to come like 2 to 3 weeks early. Like everyone is like, oh my God, your second baby just shoots out, just slides out of your body, is ready to go like a month before your due date, blah, blah, blah. Here we are, 8 days out, fellas. And guess what? I'm still pregnant, heavily pregnant, okay? I had an upper respiratory infection this weekend. It's the hormones that are raging through my body right now. I don't even know how to describe it. It's pretty crazy.
Man, so what a wonderful subplot for this entire show now, folks. You, by nature of watching this show, and we got a great one for you today that you can just download, subscribe, rate, review, leave a 5-star rating for, and check out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKingsNetwork.com, the YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and now on radio on VSiN from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern each and every day. You listening or watching are now an accomplice to this, so if you see something, say something. You are on Baby Watch here with Jesse on the show, as is our friend, because it is Wednesday. We are back from the Super Bowl. She is back from NBA All-Star Weekend, so we get to welcome in on this wonderful Wednesday our good friend Charlotte Wilder, the co-host of Oddball with Amin El Hassan, who is not sliding out of anyone's body, but getting back from the city of Indianapolis. Charlotte, you can answer the question. Was Indianapolis a good host city for the All-Star game? Because everybody seemed to want to do city debates.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say, if I sound the way I sound and feel the way I feel coming out of All-Star, I'm trying to slide back into my own body. Actually, just in general, February, we've been doing sports so much since summer at this point. It's exhausting. Jesse, I have more admiration for you that to be doing this 8 days away from your due date when this is already okay, we are in it, my hat's off to you. Literally, I don't have a hat on. So I just want to put that out there before anything else. Secondly, Indianapolis, I thought it was an adorable, lovely, walkable city. I love the walkability, to be honest. Everyone was like, I hate it here, it's snowing. And I was like, I ate the St. Elmo shrimp cocktail on camera, which everybody has to look forward to. Horseradish just up into my brain. And I was like, oh, well, this is the craziest thing I've ever eaten. Why did you do this to me on camera? And then I was like, I need more of it. Anyway, so the shrimp cocktail in Indianapolis, amazing. Also, though, I just like that everything was close and it snowed. So what? Snows everywhere. I'm sort of sick of everybody bashing these cities because it's not sexy or Vegas where it's just traffic and hot. Every city has something going for it and has something not going for it. And, my hotel was connected to Lucas Oil, so I didn't have to walk outside for one thing. And that was great.
Charlotte, I 1,000% agree with you. Now, when the Super Bowl was there, it was unseasonably warm, so walking around was a lot easier. But I love a venue where you can basically walk, go to the places you want, whether it's St. Elmo's or somewhere else. And by the way, yes, that cocktail sauce is the greatest sinus cleanser there is out there. Absolutely love it. But I'm with you. I dig it. I like walkable places so I'm not one of those that would rip a city like that. But I'll ask this next question before we move on to to some words going on in the NBA. We know Adam Silver gave the East that trophy and basically wanted to smash the trophy and walk off the court for how disgusted he was in the game. So in your eyes, does the game change? And if so, what way would you think about changing it to make it any more entertaining or to make Adam Silver happy?
My favorite thing was GoJo was your thread about funniest ways to change the All-Star game, because I feel like that's where we're at with this conversation. I don't know what you can do. If players decide that they don't care about this, I really don't know how you can make them care about it other than players deciding they care about it. When you have Anthony Edwards going on the record saying, it's the All-Star game, I don't think I'm ever going to care about it. That's like, you know, it's and I think that it applies to any team. Like, I think when there's anybody who has decided as a part of a team, I'm not going to care about this, because sure, they're individual players, they're from different teams, but they are on one team in terms of selling the NBA to a worldwide audience for All-Star Weekend. This is something that TNT pays a lot of money to broadcast. And so if you have players being like, yeah, I'm good, there's got to be some sort of reckoning, or people are just going to have to realize that the value is going to go down. And I don't know whether you change it or whether this is something that players do to themselves. But if there's something that any group of people are working on together, and one of them's just like, I'm out, and then the rest of them start to be like, well, I'm out too, I think people think it's easier to fix that than it is. I think this is a sort of a philosophical crisis within basketball that is not solved with incentives of money or of, go to Cancun early, if like get another week off. Like it feels much more personal and deep seated, unless you have younger guys coming along. Like the Rising Stars games were great if those guys decide that they care. But I really think it takes leadership within those players, or guys who are not like Luka Doncic, who is a wonderful player and I love to watch, but like Bill Barnwell's tweet about the 2K control, firing up the 2K controls and forgetting how they work. That's how Luka played. And we know he can play better than that. So personally, and sorry to rant about this, but I was just like so pissed. I was watching this game and I was like, are you kidding me? Like I as someone, I feel like I try to take pride in my work. I try to work hard. I try to show up every day, even when it does not feel good or easy. And I couldn't imagine being a player out there of their caliber, of their ability, of their pride, and of their competitiveness, and being like, you know what? I'm fine that everybody's watching this.
But Charlotte, you say you take pride in your work. Your work counts every day. This game doesn't count. This game means nothing.
It does.
This game is supposed. No, it doesn't. Charlotte, this game means nothing. The Pro Bowl means nothing. The NHL All-Star Game, there's nothing riding on it. Baseball, they tried the ridiculous thing of putting home field for the World Series on it. And players don't want to get hurt. So if they play hard, that's a possibility. If you want to rip them for that, okay. But the game literally means nothing.
I think there's a happy medium, though. I think there's a difference between turning it into a joke and trying a little bit, like when you're just walking up and down the court. That to me feels like a difference between, and I get it, I wouldn't want to get hurt either. I completely understand. But if you've decided that something doesn't have value, these guys play in practice every day. They play pickup sometimes. They could get hurt doing that. I understand that getting hurt in the All-Star game would feel awful, given that I think it was Anthony Davis who said these guys are all important to their team, but I do think it means something, in that this represents what this sport is. And it's such a great opportunity coming off of the Super Bowl to be like, hey, check this thing out. And when it just doesn't mean anything, you could say, well, let's call it, but there's too much money involved. So what are you going to do? It ties into the TV contracts, it ties into their salaries. So it sort of does mean something.
To an extent, but that's like the fans that say I pay the players' salaries, where it's so convoluted in the system that gets us to this point. And when we've all decided collectively as a public that the postseason and rings are the only thing that matters, and then players follow suit on that, I can't act all that surprised when it happens. I'll tell you what you need a couple tempo violators, because Dad, you've been a part of a million walkthroughs, and every time you're going through a walkthrough and you're not in practice, everyone's got their eye out for the young guy that's going a little bit too fast and a little bit too hard, that wrecks the entire tempo of the drill. And so you need Victor Wembanyama to come into this game next year busting in like a bull in a china shop and embarrass a couple of dudes. Because I promise all these guys are competitive enough, even on a day where they don't want a ball, where if someone starts to go out there and look like they're going to embarrass them, they're probably not going to take kindly to that. And that's the kindling you need to start the fire. So you need to count on all this competitive desire that we'll get to with Victor Wembanyama when we talk about face of the league stuff. You need to hope that shows up in the All-Star game and that him and a couple of these other young dudes decide to take that thing over and set this thing off a little bit. So Charlotte, we're glad you made it back from Indianapolis in one piece. I'm glad that you didn't have to deal with what I had to the last time I was in Indianapolis, which was them bringing out an entire bowl of St. Elmo's shrimp open in the air in the halftime press box for the halftime of the national championship game that was there. Just a big bowl with like 2 pounds of loose shrimp out in the open in the press box with a bunch of hungry media members is nightmare fuel.
I've heard you talk about this. That was St. Elmo's shrimp. That was
That was St. Elmo's shrimp.
Was that covered in the cocktail sauce?
Oh, it wasn't covered in the cocktail sauce, was on the side, but it was just a big old bowl of shrimp.
That is, Indianapolis, I really have been trying to ride for you because I feel bad. I don't like when people bash cities because everybody's from somewhere. I really don't like it. I will say Indianapolis leading with a bowl of raw shrimp. I mean, it's not raw, it's cooked, but like shrimp, doesn't shrimp, even when it's cooked, don't you feel like this is raw shrimp? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter.
Shrimp
Definitely.
is one of those things that's always raw, no matter how you prepare it. It's just like it's raw. It's naked shrimp.
It's like, it's naked. It's not, it's out of its shell. It's like me on a vulnerable day. And I just feel like, I just feel like that's not the thing you want in the press box. But I mean, I can't say enough about that cocktail sauce. That was an experience that made me feel alive. I felt alive. That made me feel alive the way that the All-Star game did not. So maybe the answer actually is that if you're watching an All-Star game and it's just bad, which is whatever, and I say all of this, and I do want to preface that, like, I get they don't want to get hurt. I get that we might have just jumped the shark and it might be the way things are now. But I think maybe the answer is actually a lot simpler than we've thought. You just have to eat a ton of St. Elmo's horseradish cocktail sauce while you watch the All-Star game, and you're going to feel alive, and it's going to feel like a competition because you're competing with yourself while these guys have a little fun.
Speaking of things that made me feel alive, JJ Redick. God bless you, man. Filling the content void for the nation. Jesse, our buddy JJ Redick, who you guys can check out, the Old Man and the Three podcast. You see him all over ESPN. Decided to choose violence yesterday when talking about his whole head coach, Doc Rivers, and boy, the results were magical.
Yeah, he doesn't want to hear any excuses from Doc. He made that very clear. So he was on ESPN's First Take, and he went off on his former coach, who spoke during All-Star Weekend about like the difficulties of coming in mid-season to take over someone else's job.
I've seen the trend for years.
What's the trend?
The trend is always making excuses. Doc, we get it. Taking over a team in the middle of the season is hard. It's hard. We get it. Just like getting traded in the middle of the season is hard for a player. We get it. Mm-hmm. But it's always an excuse. It's always throwing your team under the bus. They lose to Memphis. Oh, it's his players' fault. Memphis was playing G League guys and two-way guys. And then you look at his quotes over the weekend. Now he wants to take credit for the James Harden trade to the Clippers working out. He wants credit for that. There's never accountability with that guy. There's never accountability.
And it didn't stop there, because then we took it to the Twitter streets, okay? Pat Beverly went after him saying, this man, Doc, actually saved your career. Started you when no one else wanted to, and you retire, go on TV and say that. And, he added JJ Redick, which I love. You got to at the person that you're beefing with on Twitter. And then JJ Redick came back and said, Pat, my guy had a 4-year offer with player option for the same money to be a starter for a different team. FOH saved my career. So obviously Redick played for Rivers with the Clippers 2013 to 2017. He had some of his best seasons under Rivers. He started 265 of 266 games that he played in, put up some of his best stats during that time. But he's got no love here for Doc Rivers. So what do we think, guys? Is there some truth to these comments? Do we think that maybe JJ Redick is saying the quiet part out loud?
So I do certainly think that there's something to, and Dad, you and I always talk about this. I always trust a player's word on a lot of things that go on inside a locker room. And accountability is one of the very few non-negotiables inside a locker room that if it's there, you recognize, acknowledge, and appreciate it. And if it's not, man, is it glaring, especially when the guy in charge will not put his hand up like the rest of you and say, this was on me. And so I think it might have been building to this point for a while. And when we've heard it so overtly from Doc in the last few weeks, because this has popped up in the past, right, Charlotte? We had Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid both toss Ben Simmons under the bus after that postseason game where Ben Simmons' time in Philadelphia was coming to an end. We've seen it pop up in other areas. We know Doc postseason track record, but my God, this man has gone full Stugatz since he's taken over as the Milwaukee Bucks head coach, letting everybody know, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want these problems, but I'm here having to deal with them. And so I can understand if you're a guy like JJ Redick who believes you saw this as a player and sees it popping up very loudly here in the last couple of weeks, how this might trigger a response like this.
Oh yeah, especially because Doc was an advisor to the Bucks before they fired Adrian Griffin. No matter what happened behind the scenes, which I do not know, I do not claim to know, I do not know Doc, I do not know what was happening in that Bucks organization, but Doc over All-Star Weekend said that when they told him they were firing Adrian Griffin, he was like, well, I don't know that you should do that. And they were like, well, you know what? We did it and we want you. And now he's like, man, that 10-game road trip or, 5-1 and 4, whatever it was. He was like, that was really hard. Like, some of my guys were in Cabo when they played the Grizzlies mentally. Like, he's saying all of this stuff. And it's like, buddy, the only thing that matters, as JJ said, is that you win. I do think when it comes to what JJ said, that felt to me like there were some things we don't know happening behind the scenes. And I don't want to guess what that was, but I do think that he had the face and the vigor of someone who has seen some things that has stayed with them in a way that I can relate to just in having worked in this business. There's some people where you see them and you're like, I know what you're up to. And I think that the one thing that I don't want to let go without passing this back to you guys, JJ's use of my guy when responding to Pat Bev was you can't argue with him there. Sorry, Pat Bev, you've been demoted. Like, you're out. The game's over. JJ said, Pat, my guy, I had another offer for the same amount of money. Get out of here. You guys, have you ever heard a better use of my guy? It stuck with me.
It was a good one. It was a good use. And Charlotte, I agree with you that when you say something like this, you wonder what else, is there something else? So just because somebody had their best years with a certain coach doesn't always mean it was great going on behind the scenes. So, and I'm with you. I'm not speculating. I don't know what will be interesting because remember, Doc coached in Orlando and Boston, the Clippers, the 76ers, and now Milwaukee. I'll be interested if other former players will come out and back any of that. Because Mike, like you said, is he saying the thing out loud that other people aren't saying? And we'll find that out in a day and age where even current players, have their podcasts and speak out. I'll be interested if any current who used to have him as a coach or former come out about and talk about this as well. And, then there's the other side of it, however much you want to go into it. 3-7 going to the All-Star break? In 10 games, 7 of those games, they didn't have their normal starting lineup. Chris Middleton sprained his ankle February 6th, hasn't been back. Lillard's missed a little bit of time. So do you want to use that? But it's more about his words and what he says when you normally have what a coach says to what he says at times. There are some people out there that will say, you know what, that's refreshing to hear. Go ahead and call somebody out. That's, people maybe who aren't involved in sports to say, you know what, you shouldn't do that. You don't do that. That's stuff that you do behind closed doors. But maybe some people are happy that he does that. Like I said, I think hearing from former players will be interesting. And the gods Mike may have answered all our prayers. Because as we get ready to start the last part of the season, Mr. JJ Redick may be calling a Bucks game. I'll give you more on that after this.
Welcome back to GoJo Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield, and Charlotte Wilder. Our shouts to JJ Redick for bridging the content gap post-Super Bowl and All-Star break before we get back to these games on Thursday. And, Dad, while we've talked about JJ Redick's beef with Doc Rivers, and we will hear the rebuttal from Doc's son, Austin Rivers, in just a second here, you pointed out that we have a chance. So we have got a lot of weird crossover in this beef, and that Doc Rivers was recently an ESPN employee, and he was on the A Crew with Doris Burke and Mike Breen that was going to be calling the finals and is the top crew at ESPN. And when he left, was announced that JJ Redick would be taking over that spot. And now it all led us to wondering, is there any chance that we could get this beef elevated to broadcast level? And Dad, you pointed out we might actually have a schedule that allows for this to happen.
Yep. So the last part of the season, I won't say the second half because we're well past the halfway point, starts tomorrow. But on Friday, you have an ESPN game, Cavaliers and 76ers, 7:30 Eastern, and then 10 o'clock Eastern, Milwaukee and Minnesota. Now, I'd imagine that top crew will be on the 7:30 game, but I mean, you got to move them, right? For an era now of media that loves drama and yelling more than anything else, you got to do this. I mean, JJ took over for Doc on the top crew here, and now he can go and call a Milwaukee game of which he just, had some things to say about the coach. So how great would that be in the production? Walking into that, Mike, the production meetings. You have a production meeting, you're talking to the coach and some players of how that might go.
It is. So it's the 1 p.m. game on Sunday. Is that Milwaukee? Oh, no, that's the Milwaukee 76ers game. You're looking even earlier than that. We've got the Bucks, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at Friday.
I am looking
Friday.
Yeah, there's one on Friday. So we've got multiple opportunities this weekend because the Bucks also do play on ABC on Sunday. So you're right. I'm with any of that. However, you've got to pull the strings because, Charlotte, part of this does feel like media mastery where we had all of this hit the timeline the other day at a time we very rarely needed it. We had so many different people chiming in on this. And then they're not slick. I noticed this right away. The old man and the three, whoever runs their social account, beautiful. Immediately after this starts lighting the timeline up, we get the tweet from JJ Redick's podcast social media that says, we're doing a mailbag tomorrow. Me and Tommy Alter, submit your questions below. I can't imagine what people are going to want to talk about in the traffic that drove. It's beautiful.
I think that JJ is a media genius. I think what he has done with the old man and the three, what he's done with YouTube and what the team he's surrounded himself with, shout out Jason Gallagher, who built that YouTube channel. I think that they have taken, it is very difficult. People see a lot of podcasts of former athletes and they're like, well, people just must listen to them because they're former athletes. And it's like, well, it takes a lot to break through that gap with coming not through the traditional media funnels at this point. And I think that what JJ has managed to do is because he talks about basketball so intelligently, like he knows what he knows how to interview players to get stuff out of them, but also challenge them, but also not make them feel attacked. Like there's such an art to that. So the fact that this came on a Tuesday of the All-Star break when there's not a whole lot going on makes me think, I think it was organic. I think that JJ is a very authentic person, so I don't think he would do something just to do something. But I think that it was, we needed this today. Look how much we're talking about this. We haven't even gotten to what Austin Rivers said yet. This set forth an avalanche of content that we only could have dreamed of this week. And you know what, old man and the three, ride that mailbag home. Send that to the North Pole. Like, get Santa involved. This is a masterclass. And the fact that Austin Rivers then hopped in. Can we talk about that, guys? Can we talk about what he said?
Yeah, absolutely. Austin Rivers this is a father and son show, so it's only right that we play the son going out here and trying to defend his daddy on national TV, and that's what Austin Rivers did yesterday on ESPN. He got to go and say his piece on behalf of his dad, and remind you, him and JJ Redick, both Duke guys, he references as much here. There's plenty of crossover, and Austin tries to thread the needle here in the response. Take a listen.
In terms of accountability, like what are we doing here? Your best years in the NBA were when you played for him in the Clippers. Let's not forget that. I don't know if there's like frustration there or there's tension there between you. I know a lot of times we had to sit you towards the end of the game due to defensive reasons, but you had your best years as a starter there, especially our whole system was drafted around you because you're a shooter. You're not a guy who could put the ball on the floor. You were a strictly shoot guy. You're not like Klay Thompson or Steph who could put the ball on the floor. You're a guy who could catch and shoot, and you did it at a high level. Hell of a career, by the way. Big fan. But your best years were under him. It's just very ironic and kind of weird that you have this energy towards him in terms of him never, ever being accountable, considering he's always been responsible.
Okay, guys. First of all, the beauty of this is that JJ said Doc is not held accountable and always has an excuse. And then Austin Rivers comes in with all these excuses and all these reasons that JJ is wrong about his dad, even though it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And he chose violence when he said, we had to sit you. We, Austin?
Yeah.
We're, I'm speechless.
There a mouse in your pocket? Yeah. It's incredible, Dad. Charlotte's right. This started because he started saying, hey, like, you're my Duke brother, like all that. I got plenty of respect for your career. And this is the difficult part. And this is something you and I talked about a lot when I got out and started doing commentaries. I didn't make it nearly as far in my sport as so many of the people I was going to talk about. And so there's this fine line of how to be critical of people that were more successful than you in the thing that you do. And for Austin Rivers here to come out here and take the chopper, like JJ Redick has enough of a resume, like we saw against Pat Beverly, to say both financially and productivity wise, hey, I was pretty damn good at this thing for a long time. And so if you want to start to come and go check for check or stat for stat, I'm going to be able to hold my own in a bunch of arguments south of the TNT set where Shaq just rings everybody into oblivion and you've got Hall of Fame resumes all over the place. But it makes moments like this pretty interesting because Austin Rivers was not the player that JJ Redick was, and yet he's coming here in defense of his dad and clearly feels some type of way about this and couldn't help but veer into making it personal.
I loved how he talked about, what a good player he was, but basically called him, you're a one-trick pony, right? You catch a ball and you shoot. That's all that you can do. And as I said earlier, even if your best years are somewhere, doesn't mean it's always the best situation, for sure. So I don't know, as we alluded to earlier, is there something more to this, the way JJ went into it, or do more players feel like this? So I don't know where this is going to go. I mean, I have no idea. But Doc is not short on wanting to talk. Doc, we know, has mentioned players and, for lack of a better term, has thrown some under the bus, and we're just not used to that out of coaches. So I don't know where this goes, but Charlotte, I'm with you. I'm happy it went there because we're looking for material. We're looking for content before this next part of the NBA season starts after the Super Bowl. And Mr. JJ Redick provided it for us. We'll see where this goes.
So I do think the one thing that could be like a tangible result from this, because you're right, it feels hyper-local unless we see more players come out and back JJ Redick up and offer up a similar idea or perspective on Doc Rivers. The one thing I will wonder is this happened loudly on the biggest platform that ESPN has in First Take. I do wonder if now all of a sudden some more people go, hey, you know what? Some of this stuff Doc's saying is kind of a little out of pocket. The fact that he took this job still, but has then loudly complained about it ever since to anybody who asked, and I'm sure will line up to take credit if this turns around and goes well, maybe more people now will be wired to notice that, and it'll change the way. We talked the other day about how we're going to grade Dame Lillard down the stretch. Charlotte, this might change the way that people perceive Doc Rivers as he goes into an incredibly important stretch of their season.
Yeah, and I think I do not think he was very savvy when he said the things he said over All-Star Weekend. I think he got a little too comfortable with himself. I think he might have forgotten how many people were going to hear what he said when he said, I told them don't fire the coach while he is the advisor and then he gets a job. That just drew so much more attention because the minute that I heard he got the job, I was like, well, he was advising the Bucks. So like, and then you sort of like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know what happened. And then this is like, oh, now everybody is going to be thinking about that and remembering that. And it excuse city, baby. Let's see where we can go.
Doc Rivers got in that media chair, got a little bit comfortable, and like Sean Payton before this last football season, forgot which hat he was wearing and started popping off here. Classic. Happens to the best of us, brother.
That's what it is.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Let's get romantic, you guys. Okay, so over All-Star Weekend, we were treated to the epic bromance that is Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic. It was amazing. They were being goofy as hell the whole time. It was fun to watch. Now, after the All-Star game, Jokic was asked by the media, he was like, I mean, do you ever plan on teaming up with this dude in your career, possibly? And he gave a very honest answer. He said, I don't know. It's possible. I don't want to leave Denver. I like it there, and it's a great organization. But if Luka gets pissed off in Dallas, he can come. So, guys, that was sort of like the old, he's like, yeah, he can come here. I'm not leaving. I like it here. But he could certainly come join me. Shirley, did you see any of their, antics together over the weekend? I mean, it was really funny to watch.
I wasn't there for it. Unfortunately, I was probably eating shrimp cocktail somewhere in an upstairs room of St. Elmo. But I do think that whenever there are players who are from different teams goofing around together at a time where that is what you're supposed to be doing, I guess, because that's what we're doing now for All-Star. It's a beautiful thing. And I don't know how serious I will believe their friendship is until we see Luka at a carriage racing event in Serbia with Doncic, which, that could happen. That could happen.
I mean, listen, it's an incredible pairing of highly skilled, unathletic whites who got together on the basketboard of the European varietal. And did what we see happen at All-Star games a lot, which is star players getting to interact in a way that looks like it could influence the future of the NBA. The one utility All-Star Weekend might still have, by the way, is the fact that it's a chance for a lot of these star players in the middle of the season to get extended time together where they can start to plot. And we come out of All-Star Weekend every year with something like this. Hell, all of the recent LeBron James to Golden State stuff, I could argue you could trace back to the All-Star game a few years ago that I believe was in Cleveland, where Steph and LeBron are palling around and they look like the Rocky and Apollo montage. They're laughing and they're high-fiving and they're doing all this stuff here. And Dad, for a guy in Luka Doncic, it's not totally far-fetched. Now, things have gone better this year with Kyrie Irving in tow, but at the end of last season, remember, we had Tim McMahon over at ESPN talking about, hey, Luka has expressed frustrations privately with this organization, and there was a fear, and part of the reason they took the gamble on Kyrie is because they had constantly tried to bring in a running mate for Luka that had failed to live up and support him in the way that we know a lot of these star players go, I either need to see or I'm going to start to explore my options. So it's not the craziest thought in the world.
So let me for a moment take a step back and let's talk about the other person. Okay, we've seen Mahomes and Travis Kelce in a bunch of commercials together, right? And one of them's a Subway commercial where Patrick's talking about the churro or the pretzel or the cookie that goes along with the sandwich and says, this is the best sidekick I ever had. And then they go to Travis Kelce looking at him saying, not cool, bro. That's Jamal Murray right now. Jamal Murray's looking at Jokic and going, dude, not cool. I'm the point guard of this team, and you're talking about, hey, Luka, if you get ticked off in Dallas, come over here. Now, I know Jamal Murray's deal ends after next year, so we'll see what happens, but that was my thought as I'm like, not only is he the dude with you, but you guys won the NBA championship together. So, and now here's the Joker talking about openly somebody else at your position. That's what I took away from this, not going to lie.
I do think that when you think about what Jokic and Doncic together would look like basketball-wise, it would be, I don't know that it would be like anything we've ever seen in terms of style of play and attitude combined. Do you know what I mean? Like there is a sort of I'm just here so I don't get fined vibe about both of them, even though Jokic takes it to a place. I think Jokic does it almost more endearingly or more successfully with a fan base. I think that it would. I can't even, I'm trying to imagine it like in a competitive situation where these two are just like, can you imagine Jokic just like behind the back, left upside down passes to Luka, shooting from the logo? Like it would be it would be circus basketball at the highest level. Mike, I would love to see it.
It'd be, listen, we know basketball-wise, both of them, savants. They're like hitting a knuckleball because neither of them is moving at the speed or with the power that you're used to seeing around the NBA. But, Charlotte, to your point, Nikola Jokic has been able to navigate that sort of laissez-faire attitude with the game because he's been the best player in the world for the last number of years. It's amazing how much easier it is for a fan base and the media to stomach that when you're out there balling like he is and you don't seem to need to care in the process. But with both of these guys, it leans into a conversation that got had over the rest of All-Star Game by a lot of the stars and current faces of the league, guys like Steph Curry and LeBron James, that got asked basically about who's next, because we're starting to see the mortality of LeBron James, of Steph Curry, and of a bunch of the old guard that's lived up to the NBA. And Luka Doncic was one of the names that they brought up. Charlotte, I don't know if you being around All-Star Weekend and seeing the fans out there, I always think this is interesting, is what the crowd throws back at you is who they're there to support. Obviously, going to be incredibly Tyrese Halliburton friendly, being that it's in Indianapolis, but between some of the names brought up, Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, obviously Victor Wembanyama, does there seem to be someone, Charlotte, that's clearly tagged to be next, that's not only going to be a great player, but can be someone the league markets around the way they do these guys?
Charlotte, don't forget that Devin Booker dated Kendall Jenner. Okay.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. I don't think I could forget if I tried. I feel like Jason Tatum, they are already starting to do this. I saw a lot of signage around All-Star Weekend that made it feel like that's who they're sort of trying to go all in as a league marketing perspective. I don't know that Tatum has the wackiness or he's so good, and there's not really a caveat to that in a way that I feel like you sort of want. I think to be a star, you either have to be like LeBron, so good in a way that we've never seen before, or that we've seen from MJ, obviously, but like in different ways. And he's played for so long, and he's been goofy and sort of lame sometimes, and then sort of fun sometimes. And then Tatum's like pretty down the middle. I actually think I have an answer that might seem surprising, but I think Jalen Brunson is actually somebody who could move the needle in a way that people might not expect. I think that sometimes fans rally around a guy who, Jalen Brunson, works so hard and plays such hard-nosed basketball that he's ideal for the Knicks fan base. Knicks fans are obsessed with him for what he's done for this team, how he's been as a leader, how much emotion he plays with in a way that feels he's really grateful for it, I think. And I mean, Knicks fans are everywhere. So maybe that's why the cheers were so loud for him at Saturday night at the skills competition. But I think this guy is slowly winning fans over across the league. And if he keeps playing, if the Knicks make it far, if they make it far next year, this has some longevity to it. He has all these buddies that he played college ball with that are on his team that he razzes back and forth. Like, I think he could be a sleeper face of the league in a way that people didn't want to think Steph was, in a way.
I think it's going to need to be a team that goes near the top. That's why we're talking about Tatum right now. But I agree. What more is there with Luka? I mean, again, there's the don't care much attitude that I don't think is gonna help out there. I'm with you on Brunson. I get that with as emotional as he and Tyrese Halliburton. If they can get the Pacers going, I mean, is that a guy? That could be that guy. And then are we forgetting about the biggest guy out there in Wemby, Victor Wembanyama?
Well, yeah,
Wembanyama on a team
like,
that's horrible.
Yeah.
I do feel like that's the best answer to this question, because to Charlotte's point, what it requires to be the face of the league is either overwhelming dominance, the way that we saw with Jordan for so long, the signature shoes that follow with that, Kobe Bryant's intensity and the Mamba mentality, LeBron James in an era giving more of himself. And I think with all of that combined, you still need that initial draw. And that's why Giannis has been that guy for so long. Incredible physical draw, personality. Wembanyama, by all accounts, seems to be the guy that has that intrinsic motivation to be great, the ability to do so, and giving enough of his personality to be considered the face of the league.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Guys, Matthew Slater, who holds the NFL record for most special teams Pro Bowl appearances with 10, announced his retirement on Tuesday after 16 seasons. His bio is wild. Selected by the Pats in the 5th round. He spent his entire career with New England. 10 Pro Bowl appearances, like we said, most by a special teamer. Played 239 games with the Pats. Second in team history behind the Tom Brady. Won 3 Super Bowls. Franchise's all-time leader in special teams tackles. Patriots team captain for 13 straight seasons. He posted a very lengthy goodbye on social media saying, "I've given all that I possibly can to respect and honor the game, though it's time for my relationship with the game to evolve. The love I have for it will last a lifetime." Charlotte, a Pats legend, hanging him up, hanging the cleats up. It's bittersweet.
A Pats legend, Jesse. People forget that Matthew Slater played a huge part in Tom Brady's TB times. Now, it's been a minute since I've talked about the TB times on air, which, I've just been waiting for a chance to do. It was Tom Brady's fake newspaper that he posted on social media after every Patriots win. Matthew Slater wasn't one of the first ones after they beat Cleveland. He appeared in a little graphic about the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It said Pats rock out in Cleveland. And I just remember, I think Brady has spoken very highly of Slater in the past, but that's how broken my brain is by the internet, that I saw Matthew Slater retired and I was like, he was in a lot of the TV Times graphics, which I mean is no disrespect because this man has a resume that is so impressive and he did so much for this team. He was a leader in the locker room. I think he was beloved by he sort of spanned 2 generations of players. And he felt like a constant for New England fans in a way that I don't think we've had that much of in the past 4 years. So it feels like an end of an era. Thank you, Matthew, for everything you did. I'm excited to see what's next for him, guys.
Well, I'm going to say this. I need the Hall of Fame voters to get their blank together. Because while we have very few punters, kickers, and now we have a return man in Devin Hester, we don't have a special team player. And that's a joke. That's a joke from you voters out there to not put some of these guys in the Hall of Fame. Matthew Slater should be in without question, but I'll cape for another guy that was my teammate for a year. 9th round pick in 1985. Was with me in Houston for a year or two, Steve Tasker, and then most of his career was with Buffalo. And as a special teamer, he was a 7-time Pro Bowler. He was a 5-time first-team All-Pro. So you guys get off your asses and start voting in these people that have something that they gave to this game, even though it's on special teams. And I know we all joke about, let's go get your soda during the special team or whatever. There are guys that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Slater deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Steve Tasker deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So let's open our eyes, you voters, a little wider to those that have made an impact on a game and deserve to have a gold jacket.
I think if there's someone that's going to test the limits of this, it's going to be what we've seen from Matthew Slater. And he's got all the bona fides. He's got all the people in Belichick and Brady and others that are going to back him up for what he was as a consistent force on the Patriots special teams units for so long at the highest level that we've ever seen. So a big congratulations for him, a guy that Charlotte said, in addition to playing a huge role in the TV Times, also won 3 Super Bowls with them and was a pretty damn good player and representative for that organization. And we wish him well in retirement. Let's get to the real stuff now here. Charlotte Wilder joins this show once a week, and usually when she does, some sort of reality TV has been consumed in the process. It's time for a reality check with our friend Charlotte Wilder, and we happen to be right now in the throes of season 6 of Love is Blind. For anyone that is unfamiliar, a reality dating show where the entire premise is you don't get to see the person that you're dating while you are dating. It ends in a proposal before the two of you ever set eyes on each other, and then the calamity ensues. Season 6 has taken place in Charlotte, North Carolina. And really, it's got one main player. Now, Charlotte and I have watched all this. The 6 episodes have been out. 7, 8, and 9 have dropped this morning, and so we'll be getting updated on that. We're in the middle of this, but the one thing that is broken contain on this season has been one particular contestant's very favorable celebrity doppelganger that she gave herself. Chelsea, one of the contestants on this season, who was caught in, as I heard Mina Kimes dub it, a love square with 3 other contestants. in the middle of one of the dates where, again, you're isolated in these pods, you can't see each other, you're just talking and trying to build this emotional connection. Charlotte, she offers up of her own accord and asks the guy that she's talking to named Jimmy, hey, have you ever been compared to any celebrities? Because there's always this weird tension about people trying to fish for physical nuggets, things they can hold on to of what this person might look like as they try and match it with the voice in their head. She offers that up out there and then says that she has been told by people that she looks like Megan Fox. And you can see the look on Jimmy's face when she says that, Charlotte. So what was your interpretation or what was your read on this as you watched it happen and how it's aged so far in the 3 episodes we've seen since?
First of all, I want to say, not in defense of Chelsea, but I could see how people could say that. She has some of the attributes, some of her physical features look like Megan Fox's, the shape of her nose, the long
and she
face.
did clarify that it was because she had bright eyes and dark hair. She said that's the only comparison, but she had gone out of her way to introduce this already, so I'm not going to absolve her totally here.
Oh, no. The minute I heard her say this and I saw Jimmy's face, he was Megan Fox. He made his decision right then and there. And then Jess sort of took she was like, you are going to choke when you see me. Which to me was a little bit of like when you choose Chelsea and then you see me, I was like, a little mean. I don't know. There's a lot going on here. I want to say, I think Jimmy is sort of like a piece of white bread soaked in milk. If I had to describe somebody, he is, it always cracks me up when you see these people who are caught in these triangles and you're like, you know so much more than they do in the moment. And you're like, he can't make up his mind. He's not terribly interesting. Maybe he's got a little more charisma once they get to a tropical locale. But I saw that, Mike. I heard her say that and saw Jimmy's face. And I was like, he has made up his mind. I think my main takeaway from this season, as it is from all seasons, is that no, love is not blind, and they choose, even when they can't see people, based on what they think these people look like.
Let me ask you a question, both of you a question, because she did say, I was truly humbled by the internet. Go on a show to find love and get your ass dragged instead. And she was asking for people who had made that comparison, please come out publicly and say it again. Regardless of that, she did say, and talking to Access Hollywood, that wasn't the whole story, and something that wasn't, and I don't know if you guys heard this, that the guy, and I don't know the guy because I haven't been watching this, the guy said he looked like Christian McCaffrey from San Francisco. So does he, or was he, overreaching?
Stop it.
Oh yeah, he was definitely overreaching.
But that's why.
All right,
you guys,
why isn't he getting dragged?
This just comes back to, like, you just don't compare. You don't say that your celebrity doppelganger is one of the hottest people alive. Like, what are we doing here? Don't say your celebrity doppelganger is anyone. I feel like that's the way to go. All right.
Well, and again, she's the one that brought this up. Like, that's the thing I come back to in all of this is no matter what he did, and you know how it is. The way people in conversation will initiate and ask a question when they really just want to give their answer. Like, oh, so have you been on any interesting vacations lately? Knowing full well they just went to Japan and they really want to let you know about their great time. That's the exact reason that she brought this up here. So, Charlotte, that's why I have very little sympathy. She's had fun with it on social media since she's done right by it. But at the end of the day, you made your own bed here.
Yeah, and she said it so he would choose her. She said it knowing that he would choose her if she said it, and he did. And I also think that this brings up another thing. You can't trust anything these people say or anything the way the show is edited. I wish they had left in the Christian McCaffrey part. That feels a little messed up that they'll throw this woman under the bus, but then they'll edit out the Jimmy line. Love is Blind, it feels like if you really want to, if you're like, I want to go to therapy for the rest of my life because I have severe issues, I'm going to go on Love is Blind. Terrible decision. Don't do it. Thank you, though, because I love watching it. It makes me feel awful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Therapists everywhere writing glowing reviews of this show to make sure business stays booming. Business always booming here when Charlotte joins us. Check out Oddball with her and Amin El Hassan. Plenty of great content coming off All-Star Weekend. Charlotte, thank you, bub. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. So guys, the College Football Playoff Board of Managers unanimously approved a model that is going to guarantee the 5 highest ranked conference champions inclusion in that expanded 12-team field this fall, along then with the next 7 after that. So Chair Mark Keenum said, this is a very logical adjustment for the college football playoff based on the evolution of our conference structures since the board first adopted this new format in September 2022. I know this change will also be well received by student athletes, coaches, and fans. We all will be pleased to see this new format come to life on the field this postseason. Guys, we know how this came to be, right? Previously, the format, it was going to be 6-6, top 6 conference champions gaining guaranteed access. But then, of course, the Pac-12, did their thing. They imploded last year, essentially leaving the 4, power conferences. So then they had to return to the drawing board on this one. We kind of all saw this coming, right? This was the foregone conclusion. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, exactly. And even for the Pac-12 teams who obviously were reeling from all this and the Pac-2 teams trying to form that scheduling alliance or agreement with the Mountain West. Dad, this ends up being better for them if you're Oregon State and Washington State and somehow you wander into a great year after all of this. You've got a better chance of making this at one of the at-large spots than you were in whatever the conference format was if you had 6 allotted for conference champions. This actually, they even had to admit after taking a minute to themselves, this is better for them and seemed like the logical conclusion all around for something we couldn't even get off the ground before we had to change it.
Yeah, this is the way to go. And I love how the CFP will not refer to it as group of 5 anymore. They will not be referred to that way because there could be a group of 5 team, as we know them now, ranked ahead of a Power 4 team at the end of this and get a bye. So remember, it's 5, the champions. 4, the top 4 get the bye, and then the last 8 play with 5, 6, 7, 8 being the home team, and they get a home game there. So we see how that goes, and it'll go by the ranking. For Oregon State and Washington State, they still get a piece of what would be the Pac-12 money that the disbursement would be from the college playoff, which is about $5 or $6 million per team, even though, like we said, they're going to be playing a Mountain West schedule. So I think this is what we thought, that this is nothing new. And from our side of it, and everybody always talks about our school in Notre Dame, should they join a conference? And we always talked about, one of the reasons for them to join a conference, or a couple reasons, would be obviously for the other sports. And then, but then, as we know, it's about money. How much money could they make as an independent as opposed to a conference being in a conference, and then the ease of making it into the playoffs. And with 12 teams, it just got a little easier to make it into the playoffs. Now, one thing Notre Dame will never be able to do is have a bye because they will not be a conference champ if they are not in a conference. But they seem certainly willing to live with that and be able to be maybe ranked in the next 4 to get themselves a home game in that first round. But I think this isn't shocking anybody the way it went. We all expected this to happen.
Yeah, Joe Pampliano, who writes a newsletter covering some of the business of college sports, had Notre Dame catching a bunch of strays on my timeline yesterday because he was the one that tweeted out the new college football playoff will put the 4 highest ranked conference champions as seeds 1 through 4. That means even if Notre Dame was the number 1 ranked team in the country, they'd get the 5 seed, requiring them to win 4 straight games to win a national title because they wouldn't get that first round bye. And I just want to be clear, Joe didn't speak for us, all right? So everyone who wanted to use that as an opportunity to dunk on Notre Dame, Jack Swarbrick, Notre Dame's athletic director, is always mentioned in the 10 conference commissioners, and now 9 conference commissioners, plus Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick in the working group that helped build the new playoff. Notre Dame knew good and damn well what the cost-benefit analysis of this situation was, and Dad, it's just what you mentioned. Yeah, they'll never be the 1 seed, which, listen, Notre Dame hasn't been ranked 1 in the AP poll since my last year in 2012. The highest they've been is 2 in the CFP, and that was a few years ago already. So until that becomes something that's regularly an issue for Notre Dame, I'm not all that worried about what we're going to do if they're the 1 seed when they haven't been a 1 seed and haven't been able to break through that upper crust of the sport yet. But even more so, if that's the risk you have to take, where on the other side, you got easier access, you still maintain your independence, and oh, by the way, having to win 4 games, Notre Dame will be the one sitting at home on conference championship weekend, even if they're in, not having to play that 13th game at the end of the season. And so it still evens out somewhat for them in a way that overwhelmingly remains a win for Notre Dame and is a huge part of the reason why at this critical juncture of the sport, where we saw realignment happening everywhere and everybody was staring at Notre Dame, like, so what are y'all going to do? Notre Dame said, we're going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing, because they knew this was what was available to them, and they were looking and they were liking.
Listen, I agree. You know how we talk about this and people hate Notre Dame even more. Why is Notre Dame involved in this? They're not in the conference. Well, they're involved in it because everybody else wants them involved in it. Notre Dame didn't hold a gun to anybody's head and said, make sure Jack Swarbrick's part with all the, heads of the conferences. Make sure Notre Dame's a part of it. Nobody did that. They did that. There are conferences that want Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a team, is a school that doesn't have to make the calls. They'll answer the phone when it rings of people that want them. That's just the truth. You can hate Notre Dame more for it if you want. Go ahead. Don't care. But Notre Dame isn't making the rules. Notre Dame is involved in them, and they were brought into this. They didn't head all of this up. So these are other people. I always loved it when it was the committee making decisions, not Notre Dame, yet Notre Dame catches the flack for it. Notre Dame is in a position where they can do what's right by them, which is what, and I'll continue to say this, what every single school out there would do if you had the chance to do it. Notre Dame has the chance to do it. They're able to flex when they want to flex, so more power to them. When you got as I've always said, when they have the leverage hammer, you swing it. And Notre Dame is able to swing it. You can sit there and say, well, they haven't won a title since '88. It's exactly right. I get it. They played in the one title game you played in. They've been in the playoff a couple of times. They haven't been there. But for anybody to sit there and say they're not relevant, it's a joke. And I laugh at you for saying that, for how much they're involved in all these decisions of what's going on.
Well, and I mean, just like everyone wants to always go back to the complaint that Notre Dame is borrowing off an old reputation, which national championship wise they are, but like, I don't know, man, you had a better chance of pulling this off. We did the whole relevancy thing when I was there, and we had been bad for a while in the lead up before that 2012 season. But since the back half of the Brian Kelly years, it's been double-digit win seasons and playoff appearances. Like, the proof's in the pudding. There haven't been better as a program than Alabama, Georgia, LSU, some of the upper crust of the sport that's resourced and doing things different than almost everybody. But they've been better than most everybody else. So I get a little bit tired of that. Like, now we're living in the now. Like, we're right where we've been and right where we've earned on the field. And I say we over and over again and don't feel as dirty about it as I should. But to your point about the independence, Dad, and if other people could, they would. Notre Dame has sort of found themselves in the reverse Batman spot. You either die the villain or live long, or die the hero, or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It's either you die the villain, meaning, hey, you go out when the sport implodes and you're an independent and people don't like that, or live long enough to hear people like Chip Kelly, who offered up before he headed to Ohio State, hey, you know what? Maybe we should all be independent for football like Notre Dame, and maybe we should all structure this sport a little bit differently. Like, as the world continues to turn and as college football's consolidation of power continues to happen, I'd imagine the only time Notre Dame's going to jump from here on out is when we make that next step, and all these rumors about, is the Power Five going to break away, or are we going to get the super conference? Like, that'll be the point that they likely jump at this point, because all of it is accelerating towards that way faster than we could have ever predicted, at least in my estimation. I don't know. You've been around this sport since the 80s. Like, obviously you played it, you've covered it and all that. I never in my wildest dreams thought we'd get to this point as fast as we've gotten to this point, where we're updating playoff expansion as quickly as we've had and trying to figure out why the UCLA head coach just left to go be the offensive coordinator for a conference mate. Like, this has all ramped up the growth chart for college football in a way that seems like it ends with Notre Dame being able to ride out independence into this new Pangea of football before it's all said and done.
This has gone somewhat quickly once it started, and the way the wheels have turned, because teams have left conferences before. This isn't the first time, but throw it in with NIL, throw it in with the portal, throw it in, like you mentioned, coaches that are leaving to be head coaches, to be assistants in other spots, or getting out of college altogether and taking a shot, as an assistant in the NFL. And in all honesty, Mike, where it's going next, because the NIL platform as it stands right now is just not working, right? It's working great for the players, and we are always pro player. So I'm happy
I can say
for
it's
that.
working just fine from where I sit from.
No, I'm with you. No. I'm with you. But as a whole, there are going to have to be some more guardrails set up at some point, and there are going to be. It's just a matter of what they are and when they happen. But I'm all cool with the players making all they're going to make right now, even though all the coaches are complaining about it. One of the things that also is going to change, again, this is a tradition thing. We all were, when we started losing the tradition when some of the big bowls became involved in the playoffs. And now there's close to an agreement, according to multiple sources, of the elimination of the contracts of the New Year's Six bowls with the conferences. Yeah. You always had the certain bowl had certain conferences. Listen, you just pick the Rose Bowl out, Pac-12 and Big Ten. I mean, that was it, the granddaddy of them all. But all those bowls, Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl, had alliances. That's all going away now. All of that's going away. So the diehards, the traditionalists, are going to be bummed at that now as well, that's just another bite of the apple gone from the tradition of college football.
Well, and if people are unaware, that happens with every bowl game where they've got their affiliations and the teams they're supposed to be able to.
Yes.
And that's the way I think people want to say, like, how do you save bowl season from becoming irrelevant? And the people that have their misgivings with that, like, that's how you do it, is remove all of the conference affiliations and just let the bowl sites pick matchups that are most appealing in a different way that allows you to say, all right, which teams would be motivated? Which teams are going to be here coming off similar trajectories in their season, so you don't get a Sun Bowl where Notre Dame comes in and gets to saw off an Oregon State team that doesn't have a head coach and just watched everybody of real value leave that program for the draft or another team. So I do think that could go a long way in that. But, Dad, you're right. One of the places this has manifested itself in the disparity in the sport, now that we've gone full mask off with the system, right? I want to make this abundantly clear. College football has always been a place where the teams are resourced completely differently. Again, if you want to know how college football's future is going to go, just look at Premier League soccer, where all of a sudden you had a group of teams that said, you know what? We're basically not playing the same sport anyway. The bunch of us up top have more money, more resources, and more ability to field competitive teams than almost everybody else in the sea of 100+ teams that make up this sport. Same's true in college football. We can't act like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU have been playing the same game that the teams in the MAC and the Sun Belt have been playing for a while now. We'd be lying to ourselves. And so what was going on in private's now just happening above board, where you've got a group of five that's all of a sudden start to look around and go, man, it's even more difficult to keep up now that we got to raise funds to actually pay players through NIL. And so, Dad, because of it, we've seen a lot of those coaches leave for Power 5 jobs that are less than the head coaching job because they're looking around and going, this is only going to get harder for us in the current system until something else gets done. And again, it's not to totally throw our hands up and complain on the behalf of the coaches that all know the opportunity that's ahead of them. And it's still a good one for a lot of people, but college has increasingly become, hey, you are more of the GM than you are a football coach when it gets to a certain level.
Yeah, this is, I'll be interested, again, when, as we said, the committee will not refer to them as group of five anymore, of where they would be. I pulled up the rankings after the conference championships last year, and there would be no group of five in there now. But we know there will be next year because the Pac-12 doesn't exist. So there's 4 power conferences, and then it's going to go, to American Athletic Conference, USA, Mountain West, Sun Belt, Mid-American, the MAC. Somebody there is going to be in it because last year nobody would have been in it. The top 5 teams after the conference championships were Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, and Florida State. And then you went down to the 12th team. That was Oklahoma. You would have had 5 teams with 2 losses in this, and that's going to be a first as well next year. You'll have 2 lost teams in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, for anyone unfamiliar, the highest ranked group of 5 team is going to get a bid into the college football playoff no matter what. Right. So you'll have that involved in there. And you'll have, last year probably would have been like Tulane or Liberty. I forget who ended the season ranked higher, even if it was outside of the top 25. But we've also seen in the past, a couple of years ago, what everyone's going to reference, when you had Cincinnati, then still a member of the American Athletic Conference, now in the Big 12, make the college football playoff because they were at that point ranked higher than a bunch of the Power 5 conference champions. So all of that's going to go in there. And Dad, for the conversation about, I know they're not going to call them the Group of Five. It's like when they call Twitter X now. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter.
Right.
We're going to keep calling it the Group of Five because it's an easy frame of reference point. There are going to be teams that have a chance in all of this, but it does get harder. I understand the Group of Five coaching concern that, hey, if you got a really talented player, you're probably not going to be able to keep him very long. And honestly, even in a world where if we had just had the transfer portal open in the way it is, and you didn't have NIL as a factor in all of this, players would still be leaving. Because that next level also affords you added exposure for the NFL, higher competition, all the above in terms of the things that surround a program. So I don't want to make this strictly a money thing because resources and opportunity-wise, Dad, there's always been that allure. It's why we've seen the best players from the lower levels of college football always matriculating up.
So a few stats from that. Liberty coach Jamie Chadwell basically said, we're a farm system. And he said what you had just said. He said, if we have a guy that plays as a freshman, we know we have him for one more year, maybe, and then he's going to be gone. Will Hall, the Southern Miss head coach, said, my job right now has zero to do with football. It's the winter workouts for the players. He may, oversee that for a little bit, but he said, then I'm on the road fundraising. That's all I do. He said, I am just a fundraiser for NIL. That's the only thing that I do right now. And of the top 100 transfers from last year, 20 of them were Group of Five or FCS. So it happens every year. You're going to lose those players. And the money's just not the same. In 2023, 43 Power 5 schools earned more revenue than the top Group of Five school, which was San Diego State. That was the top revenue getter in the Group of Five. 43 Power 5 schools had a higher revenue than them. It's just they're at a disadvantage right now. And they just have to go out and fundraise, and they're still going to lose their players. So we keep trying, the Group of Five teams keep trying to say we want to be the Power Six, now the Power Five, because the Pac-12 is gone. But unfortunately, they are in a tough situation to keep up with the Joneses, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and listen, for head coaches, it's been like that for a while. It's why we always say, hey, taking a great coordinator and making the head coach isn't necessarily going to be the easiest transition because the job's different. You're not coaching ball. You're not coaching your side of the ball. You're going in and trying to manage people, and that's what Will Hall's talking about. It's been that way. You've just got an added responsibility now. It's why so many coaches are like, yeah, just make them employees. It makes my job a lot easier. Like, they're not worried about all this existential stuff. They're not worried about the other teams on campus, by and large. Most of them are worried about self-preservation and how they're going to survive this tenure as being a head coach. And that's why a lot of them said, bleep it. I'll go and hang out at one of these Power 5 schools and I'll be a position coach or a coordinator and I'll live a much easier life there because I just get to do my thing, which is coach. So I don't know where it ends, Dad, specifically, because while people have bemoaned like, hey, you're going to get all these guys leaving. We've had a bunch of college coaches leave and go to the NFL. We've also had NFL coaches come back down to college this last coaching cycle, and no one talks about the doom and gloom up at that level of football. But as long as there is such a financial incentive for these jobs, there are going to be people willing to do them and willing to take on this added risk, this added workload, and this added expenditure.
The change we've seen, just like you talked about earlier, we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years has been incredible, which really leads me to wonder, what do the next 3 or 4 or 5 years have in store? Because there's going to be more, right? I mean, talking about, the athletes becoming employees, they're the Power 5 or Power 4 separating from everybody else. There's going to be more rearranging going on, and it's been happening at a quicker pace. So I'm going to be very interested in the next 3 to 4 years as we start this new playoff system. What else speeds forward in the world of college sports?
Yeah, I know there were a lot of people that wondered, would the expanded playoff actually save more coaching jobs, where now you've got more people that are going to have CFP contender on their resume or CFP participant on their resume. Would that change that? But Dad, to your point, I think once we get past this patch where we've got all this change at once, we're going to level set a little bit and we're not going to hear as much of the complaining because it's going to be what you're used to. Change is scary. Change is difficult. There's a lot of people that have been navigating that on a bunch of plates and spinning a bunch of plates at the same time right now. The people that leaned into it the earliest and figured out the way to manage it and had the resources to are going to come out on the other side ahead of the game, and everyone else is just going to get a chance to catch their breath. Maybe, until this all starts changing again. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield. We'll have plenty of real football starting to amp up next week. Combine already here. It's amazing how quickly it sneaks up on you post Super Bowl. Starting to dive into some of the prospects now, Dad. We did a little bit of that with Field Yates last week, and we know the quarterbacks are going to be the big sell for this draft, but man, stacked with wide receiver talent, stacked with some high-end offensive tackle talent, especially in the first round. There are some franchise cornerstone potential players that are going to be available for people come this spring.
So, Mike, the place where you and Jake trained before your pro days, I'm out here in Arizona, Exos, which has become so, widely known around the country as a place where players come to train for their pro day, for the combine. And it also was a place through the NFLPA that us old guys, former players, get to go work out. And every day at 8:30 out here, us old guys get an hour, hour and a half, and we get led through a workout. And I was there Monday, and the combine guys are there, the ones who work out at Exos. And man, there was a group of about nine of us former players, more than a few of us with a little gray in our beard. Just looking at these athletes of today, it is just incredible how big they are, and not even just the linemen, the other position players, and how fast they move. It's just, we saw ourselves, right? And when we were young and could move like that and could lift like that, way, way, way back in the day for our combines. It's just fun to watch. And I've done it the last couple of years working out at Exos there especially during the time of the combine where they're doing all the training for all those events and just looking at these guys going, man, pretty cool to see that again, just the beginning of that career. It's fun to watch these guys working.
I feel like they need to do some content where instead of pros versus Joes, they do future pros versus former pros, where they have you guys all go and perform the combine drills together just so everybody can have a good laugh.
What? Oh, a good laugh? No. Do you know the tears we would have in our hamstrings or our quads or our Achilles? I mean, oh my God, what a horrible idea. Horrible idea out of you. That'll never happen.
I mean, listen, I didn't say it would be pain-free for you and the other olds, but this is about our entertainment, not your bodies. Come on. Yeah. Have a little compassion for the rest of us. We got to fill the content gap until we get to this combine now. But no, we'll have to have you as our mole inside there and figure out who's on the Exos roster. Because for anyone familiar, these big box places, they go in and they prepare you for everything. You spend and forsake all your time getting better at football to figure out how to do the best 3-cone drill, the technique for the start of your 40, how to interview right when you go into all these rooms at the combine. It is a top-down holistic process to get you jacked, tan, and then ready to go answer all these insane questions that Dad's been privy to every day watching the future leaders of your favorite football team go out there and try and beef up and get ready. So before we get to that, it's been a heavy gossip day on the show, so we might as well lean into the rest of it because Antonio Pierce, the new Las Vegas Raiders head coach, took over as the interim coach for the last 9 games of last season, already has some words for the back-to-back defending champions. He went on Max Crosby's podcast not too long ago and talked about not only playing the Chiefs, but as one of the teams that beat them down the stretch of the season, what he believes is the secret to beating the Chiefs.
And then we went into, you got the Jordan rules, and I'm calling now from now on, as long as I'm here, the Patrick Mahomes rules. So you remember when Jordan was going through it with the Pistons, all those guys in the 80s before he came Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, the Pistons used to whoop his. Anytime he came to the hole, elbows, feeling them, love taps, we touched them, we in the head, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I'm touching you. So I showed those guys Jordan getting his whooped.
I mean, Dad, I don't know why people ran with this headline as if it was something revelatory. This is what Max Crosby has been doing the entire time he's been playing Patrick Mahomes. We saw a whole NFL Films mic'd up feature about Crosby just touching him and just needling him and just hitting him. And how'd that work out for you? Yeah, you're going to beat him, and that's probably your best way to do it. But you also woke up the bear at one point and got your ass clipped as well. So this is kind of how the game goes with Pat. I don't understand why people made such a big deal out of this statement. He's saying the obvious.
Yeah, I don't either. You know, Antonio Pierce was the head coach for the last 9 games. He went 5-4, and he played the Chiefs twice. First time he played him, he lost 31-17. Second time he played him, he won 20-14. Yeah, I don't understand this. I don't think there's a blueprint out there to beat Kansas City for as many times as they've won the West, as many times they've been to the AFC Championship game and into the Super Bowl as well. So they are still the team to beat and are the team to beat. And everybody, it seems, Mike, everybody's looking for a way to needle and bring down Pat Mahomes when he's accomplished so much to say maybe what he's doing isn't as great as we think, which is just preposterous.
I guess this is the thing is, because the Chiefs have now been the back-to-back champions, they're the dynasty that's currently going 3 and 5 years, which seems like in every sport, that sort of metric that we put on when you become a dynasty. And so everyone's going to spend a lot of their time and bandwidth trying to figure out how to stop these dudes, what makes them tick. I get that, especially from a Raiders team that's in the division. But my God, the lengths and the backflips that people have done for the entirety of this postseason to try and really going back before this season. I remember when I thought I had the very lukewarm take that Patrick Mahomes existed on a quarterback tier all on his own. And man, people seem to want to complicate something that I feel is largely uncomplicated when it comes to our analysis of that quarterback. And we had it pop up again yesterday. Warren Sharp on Twitter put out this list of the average length of touchdown passes in air yards for every quarterback in the NFL. And of the qualified quarterbacks who had a minimum of 5 touchdown passes, Patrick Mahomes had the lowest air yards per touchdown pass in the NFL. And people just decided to try and use this as another means to discredit the dude and ignore all the context around what we knew about the Chiefs offense, the way they're played, the way they've adjusted, and the reason wearing the jersey number 15 that they've been able to do all that. I understand most of this is just fan jealousy. It's people that want either their great quarterback to be considered in the same vein for all the reasons they think are appropriate, all the breaks they think the Chiefs are getting, because again, that's what happens when you're the dynasty. But man alive, it is as an objective as an unbiased third party, it's really wild to watch the lengths people want to go to act like a great thing isn't great.
And the one person you may want to listen to, everybody, is, did you hear what Teddy Bruschi had to say? Because everybody's comparing or starting to is Pat going to catch Tom Brady, right? Teddy Bruschi said, hey, look at Mahomes' first 6 years and what he's accomplished, and look at Tom's first 6 years. Tom's most interceptions he ever threw was 3 times in his first 6 years, 14 interceptions, 3 different years. Teddy Bruschi said Tom was developing in those 6 years. And he said, when we were winning titles, and we've all said this, it was very obvious early on, they were led by their defense. And we know for Mahomes in Kansas City, they have been led by their offense. This was the first year that he had the best defense he's played with and one of the better defenses around. It had mainly been the offensive side. So Teddy Bruschi, who's part of all those championship teams and a teammate of Tom Brady, basically said there's not a lot of comparison in the first 6 years of Mahomes' career and the first 6 years of Brady's career. He did say, obviously, listen, Brady went on and the longevity of it to continue to win and then to go to another team and win a Super Bowl. I mean, he's just solidified his GOATness there. But to try and discredit Pat Mahomes for anything he's done in the first 6 years to nitpick is a joke.
And I get most people are responding anytime. It's like I used to have this all the time when we were on Golic and Wingo and it was you, Trey, and me, and I was in the third chair. You get a little bit, I call it third chair syndrome, where you hear a bunch of people saying the same thing and your natural human tendency is to go, well, it can't be all of that, and then start to poke at it and question it a little bit. I'm going to give everyone some free advice. As someone that got a big ass whooping on a high-profile stage from the premier dynasty of my time, 2012 national title, Alabama, the easier way to sleep at night is to not say, oh, they're not really that good, and here's X, Y, and Z reason why. That 2012 Alabama team, I'm trying to lob them up every chance I get for the best team in the last 2 decades. Make them unintouchable. Make them unapproachable and unimpeachable. And I promise you'll sleep a lot better at night than if you make it seem like, oh, they're really not that good. Like, no, if you get your ass whooped and you got cleat marks up your backside, it better be from one of the best of all time. That's a lot easier to stomach than me than saying I got beat by some mid team.
That's very true. And you got really drunk after that game as well. Yeah, I remember that.
That also helps. I cannot recommend that enough. Safely, responsibly, but a little bit of it helps. Ha!
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic as we near the end of hour 2 here. So guys, during All-Star Weekend, less than a week after Adam Silver confirmed that Vegas was definitely an expansion candidate, he went on TNT and said it's very likely the NBA will expand, said it would likely actually be 2 more teams. Meanwhile, we have ESPN's Jeff Passan saying yesterday that MLB expansion is seen as an inevitability. We have Nashville, we have Salt Lake City seen as potential candidates there. So possibly 4 more major sports franchises. Guys, what do we think? Are we in on this? Where do we think they should go? Anytime someone mentions Nashville, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I'd say there's going to be certain places like that. Like I saw on the list of other city or states that might potentially call home to this. California again, Texas again, as if they need any more sports jammed into those state lines. But Dad, this is kind of just indicative of what we always talk about with the ownership mentality. Some is great, more is better. These franchises all appreciate incredibly during the time that their owners come on and buy in. It's one of the most exclusive clubs in the world, and it's why every time one of these teams comes up for sales, you see groups bending over backwards trying to find a way to get in, because no matter how you run the organization, you seem to be able to make money. It's one of the most idiot-proof processes on planet Earth.
It is stunning when you see what owners paid for their teams and what they sell them for. It's an incredible ROI. And I'm all for expansion. Listen, as kind of a players always show here, we're always looking to the side of the player. It's more opportunity, right? It's more chances for more players to be in the pros. And I know there'll be some people say it'll dilute it, the talent, there's not enough of the talent. Oh, well, let's see then. But as far as I'm concerned, that's 2 more teams in each league full of more players that get a chance to be professional athletes. So I am all for that. I am wondering when Vegas, how soon it will be before they have the 4 majors, right? Because we talked about the possibility of the A's going there. Is that getting jumbled up now? There's thought that maybe the A's play in Sacramento for a couple of years before they end up in Vegas. You have to believe the NBA is going to end up in Vegas, which is just going to be amazing for a city that was just shunned by professional sports. Very soon is going to have all 4 of the majors, plus the WNBA and others as well. So I think they are in line to have 4. And then the others, as we mentioned with baseball, is it Nashville and Salt Lake City? Also for basketball, Pittsburgh has been trying to get a team. Now, they don't know if they're going to be able to handle an NBA team. They're thinking maybe more of a WNBA team they may get. But they've been looking at the basketball expansion for a while. They had it years and years ago on the ABA, the Pittsburgh, Pipers or the Condors, but they didn't draw enough fans there. So maybe they're going to try and get it back. I don't know if that's going to be one of the cities, but I am cool with expansion, man. I think it's great. And to Jesse's point, Nashville's a great city, man. So I go ahead and expand there. That just gives us more reason to go to Nashville. I'm cool with that.
Well, like I say, I'm sure some Nashville locals very much disagree with even more people flooding their city lines right now. But it's kind of, Dad, it's one of those places that's like Las Vegas that we always talk about, where it can absorb large events relatively effortlessly. I remember when we were down there for the draft in 2019, and our driver for the week through ESPN that would get us all over to the shows was a local who was at Vanderbilt, was a student there at the time. And we asked how crazy this was compared to normal, didn't bat an eye, because this for them is every weekend. There is something coming through there that mimics that kind of capacity, so it doesn't matter. They don't bat an eye when it comes to that kind of change. Dad, for the NBA, it's really easy. LeBron James has been saying this loudly for a while, that he wants to be in charge of some of the ownership in Las Vegas when he's done with his career. He sees what Tom Brady and others have seen in the city that has amassed titles, that has amassed even more teams, that just hosted a Super Bowl. The wheels aren't falling off that train anytime soon. The other one for the NBA that seems painfully obvious is Seattle. Like, give us back the Supersonics. Give us back in a town and a city that's been one of the best sports cities in the country, in a Supersonics team that's uniforms were iconic and that's teams were some of the most memorable of note. Like, that seems like a layup, pun fully intended, if you're the NBA, to just give the Supersonics back.
But if you lost a team, do you go back there? Right? There's a reason each city loses a team, right? So how quickly do you want to go back there or try somewhere else? Man, we lived in Connecticut for how long, and they lost the Hartford Whalers. My God, they can't still act like they, want another NHL team. And it'll never, ever happen. But if you lose a team, there's a reason you lose a team. And I know it can be an owner holding a city hostage for public funds to build whatever.
I feel like a lot of times it's because you've got ownership trying to wring every last dollar they can out of a local municipality and then turn it around and try and blame it on the fans who, listen, sometimes attendance, all these other things are absolutely factors, but a lot of times it's people driven away by poor ownership in a franchise that's almost been willingly bad for a long time. So it's a clever tactic that usually, like all things in pro sports, traces back to the people with the money in their pocket.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think they're going to be different cities. I don't think it's going to go back to Seattle. I do think it'll be different cities involved in the expansion. And I think it's a matter of when, not if, Las Vegas will have the 4 major sports in it as well, which just blows my mind to some of the changes we have seen in sports. That overall, and what we've seen in college athletics to changes in other sports, that may be the biggest thing going as far as the taboo of Las Vegas to 4 majors plus other sports that are now calling Las Vegas home.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, if you're grading, that probably would fall for me just below all the changes that we've seen in college football. Like, I think that has completely lapped the field in terms of how much change we've absorbed at once. But the public perception and the sports world's perception on Las Vegas as a concept, on sports gambling as a concept, is probably right up there. And I guess as I say it out loud, probably more impactful overall in terms of the sports landscape. But I don't know, like, it hasn't meaningfully changed the fabric of any of these sports outside of we've had a few more players now get suspended for gambling related problems that have popped up in the interim.
I guess I would say I think we all saw players getting paid coming in college sports, especially in football, because the money was just so big that it was always kind of leaning that way. I don't know how many people saw just all of a sudden, boom, everything in Vegas, because, man, you talk sports and you talk gambling, and that was the biggest taboo there was out there. The integrity of the game, the integrity of the sport. Keep it away from all gambling. And again, it was ridiculous to think just because when you were in the city of Las Vegas, you were going to become a degenerate. That was just a horrifically dumb thought. Yet, just the thought of Las Vegas and Sin City and what it was, to me, it actually feels bigger than the changes that went on in Chicago, just how it was reversed. And it shouldn't shock us, because owners saw, again, the number began with a B that they could put in their pocket, not an M, and they realized, okay, we can make this thing work out.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to stick with my original take, though, just because, again, while that lined a bunch of wallets, while that changed geography of a couple of things in the conversation around it. And listen, we're here doing a show for DraftKings. Like, that is certainly an added element to this, right? Is the way it's covered around the media. All those things have changed, but like college football, we've seen, and I guess it's unfair because they've had a bunch of change you can bundle together between the playoff expanding, between conference realignment, between the format of the sport and talent acquisition changing with NIL and the collectives that have popped up, and the transfer portal giving added agency. While we've said it's bringing what's gone on below the table above the table, it's still changed enough of how the sport functioned to, I think, overall have a bigger impact on its sphere, even if the sphere that we're talking about with Las Vegas and all the teams being added is broader overall, because it touches all of the sports, everything that we talk about in society.
So there have been 2 big changes, obviously, there in college and in Las Vegas as far as sports. Now, how quickly do we get the others? How quickly do we expand in the NBA, in Major League Baseball? It seems, and by the time, the decade is over, there are going to be so many different changes that have gone on in our world of sports.
And listen, we have not heard about this as much recently, but it sounds like that could leak over to March Madness potentially if some people have their way in the world of college sports. So coming up next, we'll finish off with this, that, and the third, including one team that got a little dose of reality on their way to March Madness last night. Next. All right, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, the third. 3 quick stories to send you off into the rest of your day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on DraftKingsNetwork.com. Our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku. And again, you can catch the best of GoJo and Golic on VSiN from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern each and every day now. Pumped to be a part of that lineup and another place that you can hear us and enjoy the show. And if you miss any of it live or our great guests, our thanks to our buddy Charlotte Wilder, co-host of Oddball with Amin El Hassan every day but Monday here on the DraftKings Network. You can check that out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as available right here on YouTube when we get done. And Dad, let's start off with this. Last night, number 1 ranked UConn rolled into Creighton and promptly got their asses whooped. Ascending back to number 1, I believe they were the first number 1, this first time being number 1 this season, or at least in a while. And the betting public had been all over UConn, Dad. UConn minus 2.5 going against number 15 Creighton on the road was the most bet side by ticket and of all college basketball games last night on DraftKings Sportsbook. Had 82% of the bets, 77% of the money was on UConn. And they didn't just get beat, Dad. They got rolled. They were down big at halftime. And Creighton, outside of a little flirtation towards the end of that game where UConn was able to pull it to within about 10 or 12, really kept their foot down on the gas, shot lights out from beyond the arc, shot lights out overall on that night, and promptly upset number 1 for the first time in their program's history. Very cool moment for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, Dan Hurley, the coach at UConn, said, I coached horribly. The team didn't play well. They were on their 3rd game in 7 days. He said he didn't like the team's body language, but gave all the credit to Creighton. UConn's big man got 2 quick fouls, so was on the bench a lot in the first half as well. But Creighton got it done. They were ranked 15 going into this week. And UConn had won 14 straight, but the stack, because I wondered, it didn't seem like a big spread of 2.5 points, right, as the betting favorite there. UConn, I didn't realize this. The last time they beat a ranked team on the road was January of 2014 at Memphis. They have lost 21 in a row against ranked teams on the road. So they have been there, done that on the road against ranked teams, and it showed last night as Creighton just absolutely smoked them. So good on them. UConn, be one of the 1 seeds, the way this is all going, getting into the tournament. And luckily, very soon we have March Madness to talk about.
Absolutely. Current odds on DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way, have UConn as the betting favorite to win the NCAA tournament at plus 500, followed by Purdue at plus 700, Houston at plus 900, and Arizona at plus 1,200. So as we get into that, Joe Lunardi somewhere in a bunker ruminating right now. We're getting very close to March Madness that everyone wants to expand, by the way, as well, which is going to be interesting as it comes up. But Jesse, let's get to that. We are a show that always tends to cater to airline travel content, and we got really fast planes right now to talk about.
There's record wind speeds in the jet stream right now, exceeding 800 miles per hour, like forcing flights to that level. So guys, normally planes travel at like 500 miles per hour, 600 miles per hour. 800 miles per hour is how fast they are going due to the jet stream, due to these winds, 265 mile per hour winds propelling those planes. Now, you've got to understand, this is pretty cool, right? If you think about it, you're like, hey, we might arrive at our destination early. This is pretty nice. But that's if you're traveling east, okay? If you're traveling west, that means you're going to be going against these crazy winds, okay? That means turbulence. That means slower flight times. I mean, traveling east, it's nice. Traveling west, it's scary.
Yeah, Dad, this is going to be sort of wild. So all of this has legs that are attached to global warming and the changing temperatures around the world that are changing the strength of these winds. Clearly, just shotgunning these people or slingshotting these people to their destination. But on the other side, Jesse's right. Like, it's going to up turbulence. It's going to make it hell going elsewhere in the future. Airlines are saying that this level of turbulence and change in climate could force them to cancel more flights or delay more flights. So we're getting ready for a time where the gap in air travel experiences is only going to continue to widen, and we're going to keep having airport horror stories, which is why I always remind you, all you selfish travelers who go out here and don't put your bins away when you go through TSA, or stand on the moving walkway, or want to jockey for position in the aisles when you get off flights, this is going to suck even more for all of us going forward. We don't need you to help make it worse. Flying is like football and blackjack. It's a team game, and our goal is to all get out alive and somehow beat the airlines that have us by the you-know-what.
Yeah, there's just, you could probably pick the airport as the one place where there's the most things that can aggravate you if they're not done in what we think is the correct way, or some people think is the correct way. There are so many things, but this is crazy. You know, hearing one of the pilots talking about their flight that hit 822 miles an hour. I can't even fathom that. Again, it would be great getting somewhere early. Turbulence. I listen. Nobody loves turbulence, but I'm one of those. I'm in the air. If turbulence, people get all nerved out. I'm like, you know what? I'm in the air. Ain't a damn thing I can do about it. Whatever happens, happens. You know, I'm up there. We're trapped in the tube anyway. So you know, whatever's going to go on. But man, I'll take getting there early. That's for sure. And then you know what? When you're going east to west, you got to live with those results as well.
Yeah, it's
my
not
father's
great.
single greatest attribute is his ability to just let go and let God. Like if he can't control it in the situation, my father will not waste an ounce of his precious brain power on exploring an option that he can't control. It is the biggest difference between him and not only the rest of my family, I think the rest of the humans on Earth, Dad. It is truly your superpower to just not give a bleep.
The biggest thing that aggravates me on flights with turbulence is it makes my screen bounce up and down when I'm trying to watch my Netflix that I downloaded on my iPad. If I can't see that clearly, that aggravates me more than anything else.
Everyone's praying to their God, and Golic Sr. is just like, why can't I watch the next episode of this Netflix show?
Yeah, what am I supposed to do here? I can't watch The Witcher now. I don't even know if that's on Netflix. I apologize. I'm not well versed in what's on what platform is my dad.
That is.
It's on Netflix.
That's one.
I just always assume my dad's still watching episodes of Hell on Wheels that only he is privy to as the rest of us battle with air travel. Jesse, let's get to the third. One dude hit the jackpot with a Wemby card and freaked the F out.
Yeah, a Chinese breaker pulled out the Victor Wembanyama, a one-of-one Prism rookie card worth about $100,000. They were pretty excited, to say the least. I mean, if you pull a card worth $100,000, right, that's like the pretty typical reaction. So it's the first of 3 different one-of-ones of Wemby in this product. The other 2 are True Black and Nebula. The current record for the most expensive Wemby card ever sold, $67,330. So obviously, if this one goes up for sale, it would likely be the first Wemby card that breaks that $100,000 threshold. So pretty cool, and yeah, I'd be pretty excited too.
So I guess I have a question. I don't know this business at all. I wonder, do you sell it now when it's worth $100,000? Do you hang on to it? Will it appreciate then the better he does? Or what if he doesn't do well? Will it depreciate? I don't know enough about this business that said, hey, dude, get your $100,000 right now. Or can this thing be worth a lot more? That's what I need answers to. Because I would be screaming just like that guy had I pulled that card out.
Yeah, there he is again.
I think a lot of that depends on your station in life, where it's, hey, do I need this $100,000 real bad now and want to get rid of this? Because, Dad, I think like we've seen with trading cards in the past that end up years later going for millions at auction, you're hoping and banking on the fact that Victor Wembanyama has the kind of career that everyone's predicted for him so far, and that this thing could be worth 10x that by the time it's all done, which, by the way, we need to wrap that young man in bubble wrap, because between the way he has improved on the court so far this season, all of the stories that you hear about him from other former players, current players, coaches that have come in contact with him about how intrinsically motivated he is, what a great teammate and player he is to coach, like, we might have another one. Like, we're coming to the sunset end of LeBron James' career. We might actually have another one where this guy was billed to supposed to be something and might actually get there. If you believe that this show lived up to the hype as well and you want to yell and scream about it, do it in the downloading, subscribing, rating, and reviewing. Leave it in the comments. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.